Ladies and gentlemen, life has a way of punching us in the mouth when we least expect it. It doesn't knock politely, it barges in, flips the table, and dares you to do something about it. And most people don't. Most people stay down. They convince themselves that lying flat on the ground is somehow accepting reality, when in truth it's surrender. They don't get up because it's easier to explain why they failed than to fight back and risk the pain of trying again. But I'm here to tell you something that science, history, and human experience all agree on. Staying down is the fastest way to rot. Getting back up, fighting back, is not just about survival, it's about unleashing the full capacity of the human brain, the human spirit, and the human body. Think about what happens neurologically when you hit rock bottom. Studies in neuroscience show that the brain has two basic responses to threat or hardship: fight or flight. Most people interpret that as instinct, as something you can't control. But that's not entirely true. You can train your response. You can wire your brain to fight instead of flee, to take adversity as fuel instead of poison. The brain's ability to rewire itself means every single time you decide to get up instead of staying down, you're literally sculpting new neural pathways, teaching your brain that you are not the kind of person who quits. That rewiring doesn't just help you in that one battle, it compounds. It bleeds into your habits, your confidence, your ability to take on the next challenge. But here's the problem. We've built a society that makes it comfortable to stay down. People get applauded for telling sob stories instead of rising out of them. We've glorified victimhood to the point that some people build their entire identity around being broken. And yet, when you study the lives of people who actually changed the world, the innovators, the leaders, the warriors, the survivors, they all share one thing in common. They got up when everyone else expected them to stay down. Take Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz. He watched people die around him every day. He watched others give up the fight, surrender to despair, and waste away. And yet he made a decision to find meaning in suffering. That decision, that inner fight, gave him the psychological strength to endure. Out of that fight came one of the most powerful books in psychology, Man's Search for Meaning, which has helped millions of people reclaim their lives. Now imagine if he had stayed down. Imagine if he had told himself, "It's over, there's nothing I can do." The world would never have known his wisdom. That is what I mean when I say, get up and fight back. Not for applause, not for sympathy, but because your refusal to quit may not only save you, it might save someone else who will one day need your example. Let's talk about the science of resilience for a moment. Psychologists often describe resilience as the ability to adapt well in the face of adversity, trauma, or significant stress. But resilience isn't some mystical gift. It's not handed out at birth like eye color. It's trained, it's conditioned. Studies from the American Psychological Association show that resilient individuals all share a set of learned behaviors: maintaining strong relationships, reframing challenges as opportunities, and most importantly, taking decisive action rather than remaining passive. In other words, resilience is about refusing to stay down. And I know some of you are thinking, that's easier said than done. You're right, it is easier to say, it's harder to act. But let me tell you something. Your brain, your nervous system, your very physiology are built to respond to challenge. The stress response, adrenaline pumping, heart racing, muscles tightening, isn't there to paralyze you. It's there to give you an edge. Yet most people misinterpret stress as a signal to stop, when in reality, it's a signal to engage. Chronic stress destroys you because you ignore its purpose. Acute stress, harnessed properly, is a weapon. It sharpens focus, quickens reaction, and primes you for action. The problem isn't the stress, it's the lack of action. Consider Thomas Edison. He failed thousands of times trying to invent the light bulb. Thousands. Imagine the humiliation of failing in front of colleagues, investors, competitors, over and over again. But every time he got back up, he reframed every failure as data, as progress. His fight back wasn't emotional stubbornness, it was scientific perseverance. And because of that mindset, we sit under electric light today instead of darkness. Or think about athletes. I once studied the neuroscience of elite fighters, boxers, wrestlers, martial artists. What separates the great from the average isn't just technique. It's what happens after they get hit. The average fighter flinches, hesitates, loses rhythm. The elite, they lean in. Their brains, through years of training, have rewired their response to pain. A punch doesn't mean retreat, it means counterattack. And that lesson applies to life. Most people never win because they never counterattack. They absorb a hit, complain about it, and walk away. Winners absorb a hit and hit back harder. Now let's get brutally honest. Some of you sitting here today are down and have been down for years. You've let setbacks define you: a failed business, a broken relationship, a bad childhood, a health scare. You tell yourself you're scarred, damaged, unlucky. But let me remind you, there are people who've lost limbs, lost families, lost entire nations, and they still stood up and rebuilt. Neuroscience tells us that the story you repeat to yourself becomes your reality. If your inner dialogue is, "I'm broken," your brain will reinforce that. If your inner dialogue is, "I'm not done yet," your brain will reinforce that too. Which voice wins? The one you feed. And let's not sugarcoat it. Getting up is not glamorous. It's ugly. It's crawling sometimes, not sprinting. It's fighting through tears, anger, fear, humiliation. But the act itself, even imperfectly executed, changes you. Every comeback story begins not with a leap, but with a decision. I will not stay here. There's a fascinating study from Harvard about post-traumatic growth. While some people collapse after trauma, others emerge stronger, with more clarity, more gratitude, more drive. The difference isn't the trauma itself, it's the response. Do you lie in the ashes or do you build from them? One group sees trauma as an ending, the other sees it as a beginning. The same event, different choice. One collapses, one conquers. I'll give you another example, one from nature. Look at the human immune system. It doesn't strengthen in the absence of threat. It strengthens because of exposure to threat. Every pathogen you encounter is like a punch. Your immune system doesn't stay down. It adapts, learns, builds defenses. That's how you survive. That's how you grow stronger. And if your cells can do it, why can't your mind? Ladies and gentlemen, when you decide to get up and fight back, you're not just bouncing from failure, you're rewriting your biology. You're conditioning your neural circuits. You're taking control of the most advanced machine on earth, your own brain, and programming it for resilience. But the opposite is true as well. Stay down long enough and your brain learns helplessness. Psychologists call it learned helplessness. When an individual, after repeated failures, stops trying altogether, even when the chance of success is right in front of them. You've seen this in people who stay in toxic relationships, dead-end jobs, cycles of addiction. They've taught themselves that trying is useless. And once that wiring sets in, it becomes a prison. But prisons can be broken. History proves it, science proves it, humanity proves it, and it starts the same way every time. By standing up when everything in you screams to stay down. Now let me ask you, what's keeping you down right now? Whose voice? What fear? What memory? Name it, face it, because if you don't, it will own you. But the moment you decide to stand, the moment you take one step forward, even small, even trembling, the chains begin to break. And you'll discover something remarkable. Life respects those who fight back. Opportunities open. Strength multiplies. Confidence grows. It doesn't happen all at once, but it does happen. And one day you'll look back and realize that the fight that nearly destroyed you is the very thing that forged you. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is waiting for you to get back up. Your family is waiting. Your future is waiting. But most importantly, you are waiting. Somewhere inside you is a version of yourself that refuses to be beaten, that refuses to settle, that refuses to die lying down. Find that version. Bring it to the surface. And when life comes swinging again, and it will, don't you dare stay down. Get up and fight back. There's a dangerous illusion that society sells you, one that has crippled millions. The illusion that time will heal everything. No, it won't. Time doesn't heal. What you do with time heals. Left unchecked, time deepens wounds, strengthens excuses, and hardens habits. If you've been down for a week, a month, a year, you're not magically going to wake up one day full of strength. You will wake up weaker, more conditioned to defeat unless you intervene. That intervention is a choice. The decision to stand up and fight back is the only real medicine time responds to. Let me take you into the neuroscience again. There's a concept called synaptic pruning. It means your brain cuts away the connections it doesn't use and strengthens the ones it does. If you repeatedly choose defeat, your brain prunes away the circuits for courage, for risk, for resilience. You literally weaken your ability to rise. But every time you fight back, no matter how small the action, those neural pathways of resilience strengthen, like muscles in the gym. You want to build a stronger mind? Stop waiting. Stop rehearsing defeat. Get up and give your brain the signal that survival, growth, and victory are non-negotiable. But I know many of you carry heavy baggage, trauma, abuse, loss. I've worked with patients who lost everything in war, who watched their families slaughtered, who had every reason to give up on life. And I'll tell you this, the ones who made it, the ones who rebuilt, were not the ones with the easiest circumstances. They were the ones who made a violent decision to not let their circumstances define them. They got up when their bodies ached, when their souls screamed, when everyone else expected them to be broken. And with time, that decision hardened into character. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall hundreds of times. They cry, they bruise, but what do? They pull themselves back up and try again. If that child carried the mindset most adults have, none of us would be walking today. But somewhere along the way, life convinced you that falling is final, that failure is permanent, that mistakes define you. You've been taught wrong. Falling is practice. Failure is feedback. Mistakes are training. The only thing that defines you is whether you get up or stay down. History is full of comebacks so extraordinary they sound mythical. Nelson Mandela, locked away for 27 years, emerged not broken but unshakable and dismantled apartheid. Malala Yousafzai, shot in the head as a child for daring to go to school, rose not as a victim, but as a global voice for education. These are not superhumans. They are people who bled, suffered, cried like you do, but refused to stay down. Now let's turn the spotlight back to you. Right now your mind is making calculations. It's whispering, maybe I can, but what if I fail again? That's the wrong question. The right question is, what happens if I never get up? Let that sink in. What happens if you accept the ground as your home? Your potential dies, your relationships wither, your opportunities vanish. The pain you're avoiding today compounds into regret you cannot escape tomorrow. And regret, let me tell you, is far heavier than failure. Failure you can bounce back from. Regret changes you for life. Science even backs this up. Studies on aging populations show that the greatest source of unhappiness in old age isn't what people did, but what they didn't do. The fights they never fought, the risks they never took, the times they stayed down. Those regrets rot the soul more than any failure ever could. So if you're afraid to fight back, let me ask, what's scarier, the pain of trying again or the pain of living with permanent regret? One is temporary, the other is eternal. I'll give you a practical exercise. Picture your own funeral. Picture your loved one standing around your coffin. What story are they telling? He tried, she fought, they never quit, or they had potential, but they gave up. You don't need a eulogy to tell you who you are. You're writing it right now with your choices. Every day you stay down, you're scripting a story of surrender. Every time you get up, you're scripting a story of defiance, of courage, of victory. And don't think for a second this is just about you. The human brain is contagious. Your fight back infects others. Neuroscientists call it mirror neurons. Your brain fires not just when you act, but when you watch someone else act. That's why courage inspires. That's why seeing someone rise from the ashes makes you believe you can too. By refusing to stay down, you are not just saving yourself, you're lighting the path for others. Let's talk about a phenomenon called post-traumatic resilience. Research shows that when one person in a family, a community, or even a workplace demonstrates resilience, it raises the probability that others around them will respond the same way. Your decision to get up could be the spark that changes the trajectory of your children, your peers, even generations after you. But if you stay down, you're not just burying yourself, you're teaching others to bury themselves too. Now I want you to be brutally honest. What excuse have you been holding on to? I don't have the money. I don't have the education. I don't have the connections. Good. Then start with what you do have. History is full of people who had less than you and built empires, created revolutions, cured diseases. You're not lacking resources. You're lacking resolve. The fight back doesn't start with abundance. It starts with the scraps in your hand, multiplied by the decision in your mind. Consider Oprah Winfrey, born into poverty, abused, written off by society. She could have stayed down, invisible, forgotten. Instead, she fought back. She stood up in a world that had no room for her voice and carved her own stage. Today, she's not just successful, she's an institution. That didn't come from waiting, that came from fighting. Or J.K. Rowling, rejected by publisher after publisher, broke, raising a child alone. She could have told herself the world didn't need her story, but she fought back. She kept writing. And when her manuscript was finally accepted, it didn't just change her life, it changed the world of literature. These examples are proof that your fight back matters, proof that one decision to rise can cascade into history. But let's strip away the fame and look at the ordinary fighter. A mother who gets up after divorce to raise her children. A soldier who returns broken from war but learns to walk again. An addict who chooses sobriety one brutal day at a time. These are not celebrities. These are heroes in the truest sense. Heroes who fought battles no one applauded but still refused to stay down. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest tragedy is not getting knocked down. The greatest tragedy is never standing again. Because when you stay down, you betray not only yourself, but the possibility of what you could have been. You let fear dictate your biography. And one day, you'll wake up realizing that you never lived, you just survived. Don't you dare let that be your story. Don't you dare give your enemies, your critics, or your circumstances the satisfaction of seeing you stay broken. Don't you dare rob the world of the version of you that only exists if you fight back. I want you to burn this into your mind. The ground is not your home. It's a place you visit, a place you learn from, but it is never where you belong. Stand up, even if you're shaking, even if you're bleeding, even if you're terrified. Stand up. Because the act of standing in itself is the most powerful declaration a human being can make. And when you do, when you rise after defeat, something extraordinary happens. The world doesn't look the same. You don't just see obstacles, you see openings. You don't just see failures, you see feedback. You don't just see enemies, you see teachers. And you realize that the fight was never against the world, the fight was always against yourself. Against your excuses, your fear, your comfort. That's the battle you're here to win. So get up and fight back, because if you don't, no one can do it for you. But if you do, no one can ever take it from you.